Number one is looking at the system design and making sure that that system doesn't primarily expect perfect operations from that employee at all times. That's number one. Number two is looking at how you gather feedback from your people, right? A lot of the times we think that we need to hire these big consultants to come in and sort of tell us, hey, this is what you guys are doing wrong. This is how you should do it. The experts at the work that you do already work for you. They're doing this work day in and day out. Some may be doing it for 10, 20, 30, 40 years. The problem is that there's a lot of cultures built in an organization. And when something happens, we point the finger and we blame at a person, right? So you blame and punish. I would say is usually how a lot of these things go in bad events. You really find yourself as an organization at a crossroad where you can either blame and punish, or you can learn and improve, right? But you really can't do both. So from a cultural standpoint, you have to have that learning mindset within your teammates. You have to make sure that your teammates are open to give you bad news. The primary component is really tone at the top, right? So you start with your leadership and you gain alignment to say, these are the core principles on how we look at our business, how we look at our people, how we look at our operations, and how we look at becoming a learning organization, right? Once you've agreed and had consensus with your senior leadership, then you can have a consistent message throughout the organization that then you can start to sort of train and re-educate the entire organization, starting with the next layer of leadership, starting with middle management, frontline supervisors, and ultimately the entire organization as a whole. It's something that takes time, to be honest with you. I think it's easier to do it in high hazard environments because everyone walks around with sort of the awareness that, hey, I could really hurt myself today, or I could really hurt my teammate today if I am not paying attention to what I'm doing, if I'm not following certain safety protocols and so on. And I would say there's more of a quality management and safety mindset in high hazard than there would be, let's say, in an office tech environment, right? But nonetheless, you can apply the lessons from this, I would say, this methodology into any industry. One of the things that we did in one of my previous lives is we were trying to figure out how to track all this, right? And we had a lot of different maritime terminals, warehouses, ships that we would visit, just an array of different locations. And it was, how do we keep all this together, right? Especially for our executive team that would go out of these different places. And we were working with a group of folks that said, why don't you guys just build an app for this, right? And this was like right at the beginning of where everything was starting to have an app. At this point, like you had your email app and you had specific ones, but not a lot of work-related type of apps within mobile devices. And we actually were able to build one where, as these visits were happening, leaders and managers and folks that would visit certain locations can actually track what they were doing, take certain pictures of things that were brought up from teammates, if a place wasn't well lit or if it needed sort of new safety precautions, if we needed to replace ladders, if we needed to do certain things. They could do it within the app and sort of route it to the person responsible for that, whether it was the facilities person, whether it was the head of safety, whether it was the head of quality, whoever it might have been. And everything would have had its notation and loops sort of close within that app. And you could also recognize the teammate that brought that forward, right, within the app. And the teammate could see, it was kind of like the modern day IT tickets, right? Where the teammate would sort of get copied on all these resolutions, and the teammate could see all of the different actions that were taking place just from the idea that he or she brought forward to leadership when they were at a facility at that time. And the most powerful thing was then, years into this process, would be going to a facility and hearing a teammate tell another teammate about the time that, the CEO came by and they brought something up and how that got resolved and how they have certain things because it got brought up to leadership. And so you start sort of changing the overall, not just the culture, but the storytelling within the organization from one that's hey, you don't you don't want to mess up or you don't want to make a mistake, to like, hey, you're empowered to tell leadership to the highest level what's not working, because this is how it gets resolved and your voice matters. And everybody wants you to go home better than you came in today.